my baby.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Bondi.
And I'm Dana Denta, and this is Adventures in Parenthood, where we take a ride on the roller coaster we call parenting.
When it comes to keeping our kids interested in the literary arts, it can be overwhelming. There are so many books on the shelves to choose from, but are you making the right decision when it comes to perusing the book aisle? What about supporting your local authors? These are some of the questions that we ponder when us parents are making these decisions. So, Dana, how did you make your decisions when it comes to books and the age?
The interesting thing about when you have your first kid is that nowadays most people, when they have a baby shower, they ask for people to give books instead of cards. So like you come into having a baby with like a built-in bookshelf of books. But then as they start getting older, like I know the other day, like just a few weeks ago, you gave me a book that you're like, Bryn will not read this book anymore because she's like, I'm too old for this now. Yeah. Where Kiki still sort of likes those baby books because I think there's a nostalgia to them for her, and she often talks about she wishes she could be a baby still. So I think like to her, those are like special. They're special baby books that she holds dear to her heart.
Sure.
But like now, like as it goes, I'm like, it is harder to make the choice. Like, I'm looking at a book aisle and I'm like, there's like a ridiculous amount of books here.
Right.
And I don't,
overwhelming.
Like when I do, I sort of lean towards characters I know she likes, which ends up a lot of times being like TV show characters. And I am not a huge fan of those books because those books a lot of times end up being just regurgitated episodes written down into a book. And I'm like, we just saw this on TV. Why are we reading it now? I'd rather read something new that we haven't read. So I've sort of started leaning towards books I liked when I was a kid, like Little Critters and like stuff like that. So one of the books that I keep meaning to buy because I absolutely loved it when I was a kid was the Miss Nelson is Missing book. And I think Kiki would really like that book too, but she's a little young. So I think I'll wait a little bit longer. But yeah, what about you? What are you leaning towards any sort of books now that Bryn's a little bit older and obviously she thinks she's too old for certain books?
She does, yeah. She's definitely got that little attitude. We go for books that a lot of them are sound, so they make sounds. So you read a book and it's like, oh, press the button. Those
are exciting, yeah.
Right. So we definitely are in that phase, but we have definitely moved to a story. And Olivia, I don't know if you know Olivia, the Olivia the pig. That's one of our favorites, and I've come to like that one just after a couple, obviously a couple of years. I've come to really enjoy those, and my mother-in-law got the 5-minute Olivia stories. It's a book with, numerous stories within the book, and I love it because it's 5 minutes and it's a story. So it's not just like you said, it's not just a Frozen or Minnie Mouse. It's not a cartoon character, but there's a story to it, and which is what we're going to talk about today as far as reading to our kids and reading them a story as opposed to, she still likes to pick the ones where, that you feel, and they got the tails.
Sure,
and they, you feel the different, she still likes those, but I can see the phase of books that we're transitioning to, which you're probably headed that way too.
Well, the one thing that I will say Kiki and I have started doing more this year is at least once a month we go to our local library, which is the Mallett's Creek Library. And they have like a little table where you can play, and then they have tablets. So she does like her business, like she's at work. And then I pick out books at the library. And usually the books at the library are books that I do not see at stores a lot of times. So we're getting something completely different. And it's like a great fun, she'll say, can we go to the library today? And it's like a fun little excursion for us to do where she gets to play and do an activity. And then I pick different books and then she'll ask to read those books many times in that month.
Do you check them out too?
Yeah.
And bring them home?
Yep, we bring them home. We'll bring home like 5 or 6 books, and then we'll keep them for a month. And like that was how we came across the Brownie and Pearl book series, which it's about a little girl and her cat, and Kiki relates to it because she's got a cat at home. So
there's nothing can ever replace reading a book to your child, and I stick by that 100%. Yeah.
Joining us are sisters and co-authors of the Construction Cousins book series, Nicole Hicks and Sarah Majszak. or Sarah, sorry, Stacie. Stacie. Just an S in my name.
That's okay.
Anyways, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and what sort of led you guys to being sort of this co-author duo together?
Okay, well, we're sisters, obviously, as you mentioned, and we always dreamed of doing a project like this together. I'm a 6th grade language arts teacher in the Plymouth-Canton district, and I've taught there for 17 years. I love to write. It's one of my passions, and my sister also loves to write. And so the two of us, in talking and sitting down, we both have young children, and obviously I'm due with another really soon, and sitting down reading the books as they were younger, like you were just talking about with your girls, we started realizing, you know, some of these books don't really have a message, or they don't have characters that they can connect with, or things like that. And so we just thought, you know, we could do this. We could totally work together on a project like this and create a series. And so it took a while. You know, we came up with ideas, and then things just didn't stick. It just, like you were just saying, it wasn't us. It wasn't something that we could connect to. So then we felt like we couldn't write it really well. And then finally one day, watching our kids, we both have boys, we're very blessed. We have boys who are the same age and girls who are the same age. And then a young one and another little young one who will hopefully both be, you know, buddies just like the other ones. But watching them watch these construction diggers. We were at a festival, you know, a local festival, and they're standing, staring. There's all these other things going on.
Houses, there's rock climbing walls, and what did we do for 20 minutes? But watch the construction crew on the side that was adding to the downtown area. So we stood there and we watched, and it was kind of basically after that we looked at each other and were like, we actually have learned through our kids. Our kids have taught us all the names of every single machine, all of the different parts and the different things that they do. And no, you need this to do this. And they were learning the process of building a house or building a building just solely by watching these machines. And we thought, wow, if they can teach, you know, they can learn through this, you know, how important is it for our own children to learn something, even something as little as that, you know, through the books that they read.
Well, that was funny, because that was one of my questions was why in these books are the characters machines as opposed to animals, which many are, you know, kids, everyone can relate to an animal and understand it, but I just found it very interesting that they were machines. So
yeah, that's funny you say animals, because actually we wrote an entire book with animals as our characters. And we ended up in writing it. We were having to research all these things about animals that we felt we don't really know. We don't know what a raccoon likes to eat, you know, does.
Yeah.
But we, you know, so then we literally sat down one day, typed up an entire list of what do we know, what could we just sit and talk about. And at that point of our life, it was our 3.5, 4-year-old boys watching these construction trucks in the dead of the summer, and I live in a new construction neighborhood, as does my sister. And so many days we would walk down. I mean, there were so many days I said to them, all right, Mom, can we just walk down and see the diggers? And so we would watch. They'd say to us, can I help you, ma'am? I'm like, no, we're just watching you work.
But then as we'd be down there, there'd be other kids doing the same thing. And so we thought to ourselves, well, there's obviously a market. They can relate.
okay.
You know, and then
when our girls started liking it, even understanding it, no, you're calling it the wrong name. When my daughter was telling me that, I thought, you know what? It doesn't matter that it's considered more of a boy
Yeah, because
toy.
when you think about like that sort of thing, like my daughter doesn't really ask for a digger,
Right.
but I don't think that I still think she would appreciate these books, and she would like that, like there's obviously sort of a feminine character in there too.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to make sure of that because we wanted the books to appeal to both genders, to appeal to anyone, to feel like as a child I can relate. And our daughters fight over which girl in the story they are.
Is them.
They're both Granny, the purple one. Yes.
Because they like purple, but you know, that was also important to us to be able to have it relatable to everybody. And we also felt, you know, with our just with all the different ethnicities, we didn't want to leave anyone out or make anyone go unnoticed. And so when we were thinking about doing because we also talked about doing people, you know, we thought we don't want to not represent someone or have a child read the book and feel like, I don't see anyone that looks like me. And we didn't want anybody to feel like that. And so we felt like with an object, anybody, you could be any nationality, any age,
any cultural background,
and you could relate because it doesn't specify who it is.
Yeah, there wasn't a.
Right.
There, you can do all different colors. It doesn't matter. You can do the whole spectrum.
Correct.
So you have the 2 books. So we have the. So you did cousins because obviously.
Because of our cousin.
The cousins.
Ours was the cousins.
Was there any talk about like siblings, like, or you just knew right off that we're going to do cousins and it'll be unique and not.
Yeah, go ahead. We started with that, but it was almost like then we were picturing a child that would describe my sister's son.
We were kind of compartmentalizing.
We were
their
describing
roles,
a goal, and we thought that's not fair. We wouldn't want one of our own kids to read the book and think that sounds just like my cousin, and that's not me. So we wanted to make sure that, and they're so close. I mean, they really are. We're very blessed. They see each other almost every day. Mainly because our mom watches them, but so they're very close. They almost are like brother and sister. And some children that don't have a brother or sister, most kids, not everybody, but most kids have at least one cousin. And so for them, we again didn't want anyone to feel left out, for those only children to think, well, I don't have a brother and sister. I can't relate to this. But almost everyone, not everybody, but most kids have a cousin, or you could talk about when they do have a cousin, the possibility of having a cousin, and how we value family. That's an important, thing to us, is to put your family first and to have a close relationship with your family. And so what better way when you're a young child than to spend time with your cousins?
Absolutely.
So
Bryn's cousin gave the book to her, and she says, my cousin gave me this book, and she specifically says that for a construction cousin.
Yes.
It's adorable.
Thank you.
It's just so unique in that sense, and I applaud you guys for making that so inclusive for like everything you're talking about, as far as not excluding, but you definitely had that in mind when you created this.
We did, and then we're lucky because they have a very close relationship with their grandparents, and so that's Gaga and Papa in here.
Okay.
Our parents are, represented in there because they take a lot of care of the kids, and they help us a ton. Our mom watches them every single day. She has the caravan of all the kids going to school and everything like that. So it was just that other kind of angle that some children are raised by their grandparents, or many have close relationships with their grandparents, and then just calling them a different name than maybe grandma and grandpa. But Gaga is their special name for her, but we know that there could be Yaya or Gigi or Nana or any of these different names, and so we thought that was something that would be different too, and not like all the other construction books or even just cousin books or family books. Like, we just wanted to put some kind of different spins on it.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that too, because we have a Papa and we have a Mimi and a grandma, and it is one of those conversations where are Grandma and Mimi both grandmas?
Right, we do. I
think they forget Gaga's their grandma every day.
If their teacher ever says, Grandma's here to pick you up, that is not my picture. There are other.
But it's nice to have that in like a book where anyone could read it, because it either like you could be like, oh yeah, I have a Papa too, or like, what does that mean? What is a Papa? So it starts another dialogue in that sense too.
Yes, and that was part of the reason too. Some of the words we chose and different sounds, like you were mentioning sounds, Melissa, with your daughter, and we picked some of those because we knew like that's how kids can learn, and they can pick up with the repetition, but also just learning new words and not, making it down to a lower level or something, just because this can be for children who are younger, but there's also older kids who are now learning how to read, and then they can sit and these repeated words, and so we were trying to make it
a great book for kids to learn how to read with.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was just thinking that to myself was, what age would kids start, like, do you start pointing at the words? I mean, I should do it now, right? I probably do, but, and it's like, repeat after me, and then they repeat, and this is the perfect book to start with that.
Well, and we really liked the rhythm. Some of the books that I read before we, even still, I'll read a book and I feel like I'm not reading it.
Sometimes you struggle to read a book because of the way it's written.
Because it's the way it's written, and you're trying to pick up on the rhythm, but you can't find it, And so for me, as an adult reader to my child, it's almost less enjoyable for me. And I have found myself saying, no, let's not read that book, because I'm thinking, I don't get the point of this book. How could they get the point if I'm not picking up on it? How do they understand?
Yeah.
So just in writing, when you're writing, you want to have a rhythm. You want to have, as you go into school in kindergarten, first grade, and you're starting to write, you want to be able to match sounds, and that's important as a reader and a writer.
The interesting thing that I see my daughter do now is I'll read a book and then she'll be like, can I read it back to you? And obviously she's not reading it for real, but she does do this. She will put her hand like she's reading it, but it's like almost like she's got it. It's like some pages are spot on.
Yes.
She has it memorized.
And she probably imitates it back in your voice.
Yeah.
Because my daughter does the same thing. She imitates it right back in the voice that I read it. And so that was another thing too, when you have a rhythm, they can do that. Children can hear that and pick up on it, and that way it's similar. Different people will read it in a similar way.
Did you guys find it challenging to write these books because they are for kids? Because you both talked about how you wrote, you're writers, but I assume that when you were originally writing, probably before you had children, you were writing more for adults.
Yeah, once we had the idea, it was the writing part was really quick.
Okay.
But then the first book, when we sent it to an editor, we felt like, we're really good. Like, we're going to send it to this editor, and we were really proud of it.
No changes.
Yes. Well, and I love poetry. I love teaching this, something I love to teach, all this rhythm and meter and all these things. Well, we got it back, and it was like, you need to match up all of the syllables. You need to match. And I mean, we had to cut the story basically in half. It was about 600 words, and we had to cut it down to about 325. She said it's too long. It's not, a children's book. Like, it's just not going to work. It's going to take too much time, and you need something that's timely but also effective. And so we sat and we literally counted syllables and counted words. And then the second time around, it was so much easier because we had the rhythm and we wanted to just kind of stick with the same beat. So once we had the Construction Cousins Crazy Christmas was actually the first idea because it was based on something that truly happened. The tree fell over in my sister's house as my mom was watching them one day. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it was traumatizing and things were broken. And so that was the original idea, but we're like, we really want to start a series, like you mentioned, and we can't start with the Christmas one because we need to introduce the characters. So then we had this other idea. So that one took a bit longer, but once we had the ideas, it was a pretty quick process.
I was going to say, how long from start to finish?
So from submitting our manuscript to our publisher, the actual production of the book is about 9 months. Can take up to a year. So, in planning, we had to strategically plan. We wanted to release the Construction Cousins during construction season. We didn't.
And then Christmas during Christmas.
Correct.
Yes, and actually a little before so that people can get it in time. So we really had to plan that. And then, thinking of a next one, maybe about something about, new life, adding a new buddy, having a new family member or something of that sort. Obviously, spring is a good time for that, so probably, coming out toward the spring. So then we have to start thinking, you kind of start thinking long term. Okay, so we've got a couple months to get something together, and then we got to get in there.
Because you think of new birth, in springtime, everything is growing, everything's changing. And for kids, we are just continuously trying to find what are issues that this age group is dealing with. What is something that they every day, or they go to a play group, they go to school, they go to play with a friend or a cousin. What type of issues is an issue for them? Like what lessons are, sharing is a big one. Thinking about others is a big one, and it's not just about you and your tower here. You have to also try to to work through that and work through the problems and not just have a parent solve it for you. So we were really wanting to have the children that were reading the book be able to problem solve, because we see that in our middle schoolers that have zero problem solving skills. They'll come to us with a problem, and you try and walk it through, and it's almost like they don't have the basic steps of how to solve their own problem. They don't know what to do. They don't know what the first step, right? And so we really, are hoping to be able to teach young children how to problem solve. And by watching the characters in the books, they're able to see these are the steps they thought of. And even especially in the second book, the Christmas book, someone gives an idea and someone else says, no, that's not going to work. Like, and the reasons why. That's not, it's not the Christmas spirit, you know, we're not just gonna go buy them a new one, let's do something. And so I think, you know, that shows your first idea isn't always your best.
Okay.
You know.
All right, well, we're gonna take just a short little break here. We'll be back with more from Nicole and Stacie. We're back with authors of the Construction Cousins book series, Nicole Hicks and Stacie Majszak. Well, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So while we're still talking about the books and like your sort of, you know, inspiration for the books and all that, talk about working with the illustrator that you work with, because this is someone you're going to continue to hopefully have a relationship with as you continue to write these books. But what about writing the first one? Did he give you drawings of characters for you guys to have inspiration? How does that work?
Well, actually, the publisher we go through is Mascot Books, and they had a panel of different illustrators that once we signed on with them, we could look at their portfolios. And actually, he was our first choice. He's worked with other, you can probably see some, you know, resemblance to Blaze and the Monster Machines. He's worked with some of the Nickelodeon characters and doing some freelance, I think, for them. And so we loved his work and kind of they pitched this to him, and we've actually never spoken to him.
Oh, really?
We go through all email and messages and different notes that we send.
He lives in New York, so we've never actually gotten to meet face to face with him.
So we, you know, once we requested that he be our illustrator, he said yes, so we were thrilled. And then we went from there, but what we actually had to do was write all of the notes. So he never gave us sketches until we sent over information of what we were envisioning. And then we went back and forth and being really detailed of, you know, this side of the page has this and this side, and colors and, you know, what their faces, what we wanted them to look like, and just different things like that. And I mean, he totally nailed it. It's really amazing to see how it can come to life just through, you know, messaging and descriptions. And it's, you know, I teach my students all the time about sensory details and, you know, having these pictures in your mind, how important that is. And it's important for all people as they're reading to have kind of that movie in your mind or these pictures in your mind. And, you know, to then be on the other side where you have to tell, here's what I want people to see.
Without
you know,
seeing it yourself.
Correct, correct.
Right.
Without
Or
seeing
being
it.
able to draw it
meeting
ourselves.
Yeah.
Neither one of us are drawers. You know, someone asked us, why didn't you illustrate? We thought, oh, you don't want to see our illustrations. They go.
I think it's beautifully done.
Thank you.
love the
These books are
illustrations.
you.
so fun and,
And
so
honestly,
colorful.
I was like, it did look familiar to me. Like his drawings did have some sort of familiarity to me. So yeah, I could see that.
Once we tell people that, they go, oh my gosh, I can see it.
As soon as Melissa brought the book into work the first time for me to see, I'm like, this looks like something I've seen.
Yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. Like a
yeah.
familiar, like you said, like
Well, and
familiar.
I think there's something about that familiarity, like you were mentioning earlier about people, you know, reading the books that go with shows and different things like that. But there's something about that where we wanted them to be really relatable, and so that was important, and he, you know, he could do that.
So on the other side of that, as far as the reading part of it and reading these books to your children, to your kids, what do you see as probably the most beneficial? As you know, those in the as a teacher, what is the most beneficial?
Well,
like part of it.
I think, I mean, there's a lot. I think there's many things that are beneficial, but, you know, I saw this the other day. There's no app to replace your lap. You know,
Aw.
I mean, just having that one-on-one time with your child and having that time to connect and to model reading. You know, we just live in a world where there's so much technology and there's so many benefits, but there's also so many drawbacks where it's just, you know, children don't realize how addicting it is for their brains. And just when you read these articles about how it changes brain activity and the whole structure of the brain from, you know, only reading on a screen. Or not, you know, not just reading on a screen, playing on screens, and they don't realize until, you know, you don't see it until maybe they're 12. Like when we're in school, and then their communication skills, you know, are lacking, and their ability to have friendships and to talk to people in a room, or to have that connection is just, it's crazy how much that impacts. And when you talk with kids and hear about it, it's like, you know, how much are they reading at home, or how much have they been reading for all these years? Because like you guys were saying, you've been reading to your girls since they were little. I mean, like you mentioned, being born at the baby shower and you walk in with a huge collection of books, which is so amazing, and then just taking that time. You know, there's just so many things cognitively that reading from a book with somebody can do that just looking on a screen or, you know, not reading at all can't. So.
And how do children learn anything? Doesn't matter what it is, but by modeling. You know, so even just being able to learn how to communicate and modeling what reading is. You start on the left side of the page. You look at the pictures match the words. That in and of itself also develops the whole literary side of the brain. You know, not only just when you're reading, but when you see something out the car window, they're matching what they see with what they say. You know, those two things match, and how important that is. And if you're not having those mini conversations, you know, those mini moments to create and to model for them how are they to know? How do they learn? You know, they know everything by learning through you as a parent. And I think, you know, too, the books themselves, once they're fine motor skills, turning the pages, to physically have to turn the page, that makes, you know, that is a skill that some kids that are used to holding things can't do. And not to say that young kids are playing video games or on phones all the time, but it does help with that.
That leads to other fine motor skills.
We are just about out of time, so if you want the books, either both Construction Cousins books at the moment, you can go on constructioncousins.com.
Hold that one up.
Yep.
And you guys can also be booked for events and stuff. You'll do reads and crafts and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. We come out to schools and we'll do different types of events and presentations in classrooms to full groups. We've done, you know, almost full schools of children. So, and then crafts. Like there's lots of different options that
Birthday
you can
parties.
find. Birthday parties.
So, but everyone can find this on the website.
Yes.
Or even on Amazon. We're also on
Amazon.
Amazon,
Yep.
Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. We're on all.
And locally at Nicola's Books.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
If you have an idea for a parenting show topic or guest, talk to us on Twitter and Facebook at #CTNAnnArbor.
And for more programming and services offered here at CTN, you can visit us online at a2gov.org/CTN. And visit our YouTube channel, CTN Ann Arbor, to watch our full lineup of all of our programs. And remember to like, comment, and share. And thanks for joining us on this episode of Adventures in Parenthood.